So today I just wanted to take a quick look at the 2009 stop-motion animated film Coraline. I know for quite a few people this does happen to be a favorite. I was very much of the unpopular opinion for the longest time. I saw this film, I want to say maybe roughly 3 years ago for the first time. I was not impressed. I thought it was boring. I didn't see the appeal. I just thought the movie was just rubbish. But I did recently rewatch it. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more. Why I disliked it the first time, I really don't know. I mean, there are definitely a lot of elements in the film that I really do like and enjoy. And obviously it's not, a straight kiddie movie. I mean, it does tend to be a bit dark with what's going on here. So we essentially have the story of a young girl and her family who have moved into this I guess you could say this apartment complex called the Pink Palace. And early on in the film, Coraline meets a young boy who basically just goes by YB for short. But he's actually surprised that the family was allowed to move in. According to him, the grandmother had never allowed any families with children to move into the complex. We do find out why, but we never actually find out why this particular family was allowed to move into that complex. So to me, I don't know if it was just done by design, or I don't know, maybe grandma was just getting old and slipped up. But Coraline very early on receives, I guess you could say, warnings. Obviously, I take YB's comments as the first, I guess you could say, offhanded comment or warning. Then of course you do have the I guess you could say the circus performer with his jumping mice. He says the mice told him that she is to stay away from the secret door. Obviously there's no way he could have known about that, so she does know this to be true. And then of course you do have the two biddies living downstairs. They read her tea leaves and they once again tell her that she is in danger. So Coraline, she basically comes off as just, a regular, basic, bratty little girl. She demands her parents' attention. Obviously her parents are workaholics. I also get the impression that they're not too well off, which is why they focus on their work so much. And Coraline is pretty much left unattended, I guess you could say ignored for the most part. So, she does tend to be, like I said, a bit bratty, a bit demanding, but what child isn't from time to time? So she was a bit trying on my patience, and yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, I didn't like her, but she grew on me gradually. Like I said, she's a realistic depiction of what a child's behavior would be like, especially if a child feels attention starved. So yes, in that aspect, yes, she is, I guess you could say, an accurate portrayal, but this pretty much is what leads to her demise. She discovers this secret door, and in this secret door, I guess you could say, is an alternate reality where she has the other mother and the other father, and this life just seems a lot more welcoming, a lot more inviting. The mother in this world actually does the cooking. She dotes on Coraline. The woman, her body figure is actually a lot more plumper than the real world mother as well. So there are some differences in their characterization here as well. Obviously the major difference being the button eyes, which I guess you could say later do make sense. So it really isn't too long before the other mother starts showing her true colors. We realize that she really isn't, as perfect as she seemed. But to Coraline, the grass is always greener, and that's true of anyone. But obviously the YB in that alternate reality is mute. I wonder why. And she pretty much does, I guess you could say, silently scold him and tell him to keep a happy face. Of course, we also do have a few slip-ups from the other father where he mentions things he shouldn't be saying, but very early in the film as well, when she visits this alternate reality, there's a cute little scene where Coraline sits down with the other father. He plays the piano and sings to her. So it seems like just a very fun scene. The thing is, if you actually pay attention to the wording of that song, he's actually warning her what's to come. So, that one, I guess you could say, is very easy to overlook just because you get swept away in the jaunty tune, but he's actually saying something there. So it isn't too long before we discover that the other mother, I believe she's described as a bedlam. She basically lures children in, and of course the promise is for them to stay in this perfect life, in this perfect reality. She has to sew buttons over their eyes. So there's a very big hint there, obviously eyes being the window to the soul. If their eyes are just, I guess you could say, covered, their souls basically remain trapped there. So the other mother basically just feeds off of their life force, so that's pretty much her food. Throughout the course of the film, you really don't see her eat anything at all, except for like some chocolate bugs in the later half of the film. But throughout the entire movie, there are various bug references. There's a mantis tractor. I believe in the real world, Coraline also has some bug wallpaper. But there are a few scattered references throughout here and there. So it's basically, I guess you could say, very subtly being hinted at throughout the film. Obviously, a very observant eye can catch quite a bit. But even then, I mean, every single time you rewatch the film, you're going to see and notice something different that you've missed the first time, which to me makes the film more enjoyable, because you can actually essentially see it in a new light every time. So of course Coraline, realizing a little bit too late that she's basically screwed and that the other mother wants to pretty much just eat her, she pretty much just has to clever up and pretty much just beat her at her own game, essentially making a wager of sorts that, in order for her to find the eyes of the missing children, as well as recuperate her parents, which have been abducted. So throughout these scenes as well, we also discover that the people in this other world obviously were not what they seem. We gradually see their true appearances. So obviously Coraline, this animated film, is based off of the novel by the same title. Wybie is actually not an actual character in the book. He was just added in order to allow Coraline someone to interact with, rather than us having to hear her talk to herself through the entire movie. Granted, I guess you could, I guess you really can't dress it up too much. So I would say, yeah, adding the additional character, at least just for film purposes, was a good tactic. Initially, when the project was started, the filmmakers did not realize that the film project was going to run so long, so they actually worked on this animated film for a little over a year, and to my knowledge, it's also the, I guess you could say, the first animated film to be filmed in 3D. The detail on the characters is great. You know, they definitely have a unique and interesting design. I really love the color scheme on this. Obviously, they had someone different working on this film, but it kind of seems to mimic the ideology of Corpse Bride, where the real world is kind of just very drab and dull, and the alternate reality is just very bright and vivid and very inviting. Of course, that's part of the trap in this film. Of course, the other mother, or the Bedlam, she actually is a spider-like creature, so obviously she lures children into her, I guess you could say, her web of deceit. But it definitely falls into place with all of the bug references. Of course, to my knowledge, some cultures refer to a bedlam as being a witch or a crone. I really didn't see her that way. I mean, I saw her more as being a, I guess you could say, a siren. She takes on the guise of the thing that you desire the most in order to lure you in and manipulate you. So, you know, definitely is able to alter her reality as well as her appearance. So I thought that was very interesting in itself. But I mean, yes, I never really saw her as a witch-like creature, but you know, she's definitely very supernatural. But I am glad that I was definitely able to enjoy this film a lot more the second time around. And as usual with me, if I dislike something the first time, I usually give it a few years before giving it another shot. But yeah, I definitely saw a lot more in this that I hadn't noticed the first time. Why on earth I thought it boring the first time I saw it, or just crudtacular, I really don't know why. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a film for, I guess you could say, the observant. There's a lot of eye play there for you to just catch and notice. But that is pretty much all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.